Welcome back to another episode of The Demon's Den, your stop for horror history, stories, and more. I'm your host Hex, and in this episode we will discuss a sequel that never happened, but dear sweet God it should have. The sequel to the famous slasher battle known as Freddy vs. Jason. It was to be named Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash. Yeah, Ash Williams, the shotgun-wielding, chainsaw-handed, smoldering space dandy himself. But this wasn't the original idea for the sequel, and the ending for the first movie was also supposed to be different from how it actually happened. So, why didn't the sequel happen? What was it about? What was the original idea for the first sequel? All of these questions and more will be answered. So let's get into it. We'll start with the first movie. The ending we saw with Jason carrying Freddy's head out of the lake and his head winking at the screen wasn't the ending they had in mind. This original unfilmed ending had Jason and Freddy fighting again before chains would appear from the darkness and string them up. Then Pinhead from Hellraiser emerges from the darkness and says, "Now gentlemen, what seems to be the problem?" This ending was supposed to lead into the first idea for the sequel, which was Freddy vs. Jason vs. Pinhead. It's definitely an interesting idea. Pinhead and his Cenobites battling it out with the Dream Demon and this indestructible force known as Jason. It would have been awesome to see, but also short. No matter what version of Pinhead they would happen to fight, they would get their dead butts handed to them. If Freddy got to keep his dream powers, then yeah, maybe he would have been able to do something. Jason would last, like, a minute against Pinhead before being ripped into pieces. But, imagine if he made them into Cenobites. Imagine a Jason, oh my god, I just think it would look pretty sick. But, there were honestly very poor reasons this sequel didn't happen. First, it was because New Line Cinema didn't own the rights to Pinhead or the Hellraiser franchise. I mean, sure, they could have paid to use the character, but the ones in charge didn't see Pinhead being a character that would draw in the crowds like Freddy and Jason would. Which, I mean, come on, that's some BS right there. Such BS, in fact, that to compete with the success of Freddy vs. Jason, there was a Pinhead vs. Michael Myers in the works that was almost a thing until it received a negative fan response. But if they were to bring back the Michael from the 6 film universe and put him up against Pinhead, that would make for some good watching right there. There is, however, a story that served as a sequel to Freddy vs. Jason. It was a 6-issue comic book written by James Corrick, I hope I'm saying that right, and boy did this story go somewhere. Like, seeing this thing on screen would have been the horror event of our lives. So here's the full plot. Obviously, spoilers ahead, so if you want to find the comics and read them for yourselves, I totally encourage it. So the time is 5 years after the events of Freddy vs. Jason. Will and Laurie, the two that made it out at the end of the movie, decide that they need to make the horrible decision to travel back to Camp Crystal Lake so they can finally close the book on whatever happened there. I guess they thought Jason was dead, but we all know that pissed off goalie just doesn't stop. A little after they arrive, Jason takes them out and takes them back to his shack. You know, Jason has the entire run of this camp and he chooses not to live in a furnished cabin. I know he's an undead slasher, but he still has a place that he retreats back to. Anyway, while in his shack, he enters a trance-like state where he sees his mother and Freddy, but Freddy is just making it seem like his mom is there, you know, kind of like what he did in the first movie. This is where we learn that Freddy is trapped in Jason's mindscape without any way to escape, because he doesn't have any more power. Now, while knocking around in Jason's head, he finds out about a book called the Necronomicon. This book was used by Jason's mom to resurrect Jason after he drowned all those years ago. This perfectly explains how Jason was able to come back and why he's an indestructible zombie. The dude is a deadite. So Freddy learns that the Necronomicon will bring him back to a fuller than full power, like give him some immense power. Somehow, he convinces Jason to travel back to his family home where the book is, so that Jason can, well, like what Freddy put it, so he can become like a real boy, so Jason can become normal. As all this is happening, a new store is being opened up in the Crystal Lake area, a brand new S-Mart. It's like this universe's version of a Walmart. So this new store is run by slacker teenagers, so the company sends over a senior employee to whip this team into shape. It's none other than Ashley Joanna Williams. Now while there, Ash learns of Jason and chalks up all of his killings to Deadite activity. And when Ash learns of Deadites, he gets to work. A little bit of time goes by, and he follows the teens into Jason's family home, where some of them get off, of course, but they make it back to the store with the book. Ash, of course, knows what the Necronomicon is. He's been dealing with the Necronomicon his entire life, so he knows the horrors that can come from this thing. Victory is short-lived when Jason just bursts into the S-Mart, kills a lot of people, and escapes with the book. Freddy then uses Jason and is able to use the Necronomicon to bring himself back to that fuller than full power I was talking about. And then he does something even scarier. He makes Jason intelligent. A smart Jason is like... It's like... You know, I can't even come up with a proper analogy for that. A smart Jason is usually the analogy I come up for other things. Like, oh man, how bad is that? Dude, that's like if you make Jason smart. You see, it's so scary that it sounds like an impossible situation. Freddy, with his powers back and his new powers building, is able to visit Team Ash in their dreams, where it's revealed that Freddy is now so damn strong that he has straight up reality warping abilities. So he's turning into like a crispy, demonic Thanos. Thing is though, Jason, now being smart, sees exactly what Freddy is doing, and decides that he wants some of that for himself, and tries to take the book away from Freddy. Freddy then resurrects every person that Jason has ever killed through all the movies as Deadites to stop Jason. Ash and Jason fight this entire army, while Freddy is busy making Jason's home into his home. At the end, we see all three of these legends just duke it out. Ash, with the help of his employees, is able to take the Necronomicon back, open up a portal and kick Freddy into the Deadite dimension. Then they trap Jason and the book underneath a now frozen Crystal Lake. Seeing all this unfold on screen would have been amazing. It'd be like a nostalgic atom bomb exploding before our eyes. Reading this, plus the comic sequel to this comic sequel, you know, it did feel like a continuation, but it was like reading the last Airbender comics after the series ended. Sure, we got to see what was happening afterwards, but hardly anyone really knows what's been going on afterwards. I would have just loved to see it played out, or even animated. Can you imagine an animated horror movie? The only horror animation we get is horror anime, and I'm not complaining about that at all. Death Note, Tokyo Ghoul, even Wonder Egg Priority. All, love them all. But an animated horror movie would go so hard, and the limitations that they would usually have with like a real-life horror movie would just be gone. You can animate anything. And look at the crazy anime that's out there. Yeah, people can animate anything. And you know, they have that motion comic thing, like on HBO Max, you can watch the entire Watchmen motion comic. And since this 6-issue comic series was actually made from DC, they could absolutely do that. And I really think they should. But, you know, that's just me though. Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Demon's Den. Join us next time for more spookums. Until next time, stay safe, lock your doors, and remember, shop smart. Shop as smart. You got that?